Dobro. History. Archive.
Friday, November 13th, 2015, it was an unseasonably warm night in Paris. Really warm.
Yeah, people were outside, on the terraces, cafes, laughing, drinking, just living.
Exactly. A completely normal city on a completely normal night,
Right.
focused on pleasure, music, possibility.
That normalcy, that's really the key thing here, is the backdrop that makes what happened next so jarring, so terrifying.
Because in just 3 hours, that beautiful, vibrant life was just shattered.
Utterly. A coordinated attack. 130 people killed across multiple sites in the city. The whole capital became, well, a map of terror that night.
So today, our deep dive mission, it's not just to recount the events, the timeline. We want to go into the sources.
Right. The testimony from survivors, the police reports, forensics, all of it.
And we want to uncover those critical points. The moments of chance, coordination, the individual choices that decided, well, everything. Life and death.
We're looking for those almost invisible turning points, where fate, maybe just governed by the smallest detail, turned on a dime.
And if we're looking for the artifact, the thing that connects it all, the Rosetta Stone of the night,
Yeah.
we don't start in some high-tech intelligence briefing room.
No, you start somewhere much more mundane. You start with a piece of trash.
Exactly. Because outside the Bataclan concert hall, where the worst of the siege happened, investigators found a phone.
Just a single mobile phone discarded in a bin right outside the venue.
And that phone gave them the chilling link, the thing that unified every explosion, every gunshot across Paris that night.
It had the final command, sent at 9:42 p.m. from the operational leaders. It just read, "On est parti, on commence."
We're off. We've started. That simple text message, the digital leash, you could call it.
Yeah, it was the confirmation signal. Coordinated mass murder set in motion by SMS.
It tied together the stadium attacks, the cafe shootings, and the start of the horror at the Bataclan. The real epicenter.
Okay, so let's paint that picture. Inside the Bataclan Theater, historic venue, 11th arrondissement, sold out, 1,500 people crammed in there.
The American band, Eagles of Death Metal, they're playing. Music's loud, energy's high, it's a rock concert.
And somewhere in that crowd, just doing his job, is Nick Alexander, 36 years old, English guy, worked in music, running the merchandise stand that night.
Just a normal Friday night gig for him, surrounded by the noise, the atmosphere.
Then 9:40 p.m. So this is 2 minutes before that confirmation text we mentioned was actually sent.
The sound changes. A sharp, loud pop, pop, pop rips through the music.
And this is where your brain tries to make sense of it,
No.
right? The psychological defenses kick in immediately.
Totally. The guitarist, Eden Galindo, he thought the sound system had just completely blown.
And Arthur de Nouveau, a banker, 29 years old, in the crowd. He thought maybe a faulty amp.
Oh.
Or like some pyrotechnic effect that went wrong.
It's that common thing, isn't it? You try and force the unbelievable into a familiar box. A rock show problem.
But the sources, they show not everyone was fooled for even a second. Jesse Hughes, the lead singer, his testimony is different. He freezes. He said later, "Being from a desert community in California, I know the sound of gunshots."
Wow. So he knew instantly.
One cold thought, he said. "I knew death was upon us." He didn't hear a malfunction. He heard intent.
And in that same instant, 3 gunmen, AK-47s, they burst in through the main entrance.
And just start firing indiscriminately into the crowd.
Survival, right then, it just became, well, a lottery, instinct, chance, maybe some random training you once had.
Look at Arthur de Nouveau, the banker we mentioned. When the shooting started, he hit the floor immediately.
And what saved him wasn't, his day job skills. It was half-forgotten military service training.
He knew the protocol. Get flat, stay flat. That was the only potential way to survive.
It's not just muscle memory, though, is it? The sources say he consciously moved.
Right, under extreme stress. He wasn't running wildly. He described slithering on his belly for 10 minutes. 10 excruciating minutes, crawling over bodies towards an exit he could barely see.
Knowing that standing up, even for a second, meant certain death. That ability to access those buried skills, that gave him an edge.
But then you have the complete opposite reaction, just as powerful, deliberate sacrifice.
Nick Alexander, at the merch stand, his friend Helen Wilson was right there with him.
Helen Wilson's testimony. It's incredibly hard to read. She said when the gunfire started, Nick's only reaction, his first instinct, was to throw me out of the way.
He shielded her, took the bullets meant for her.
He was hit immediately. Helen was hit too, in her legs, but she didn't run. She stayed with him.
Lying there on the floor, repeating what she later shared were her final words to him. I love you, Nikki, and I'm going to stay with you. I'm not going to leave you.
It's that stark contrast, right there in the Bataclan. Pure survival instinct Arthur slithering towards an escape, and absolute selfless love Nick choosing death to save someone else.
Both happening in the same few minutes of unbelievable terror.
The accounts from inside, afterwards, they're almost impossible to comprehend. Survivors talking about walking through a river of blood.
People hiding in tiny cupboards for hours. Or playing dead, buried under piles of bodies, sometimes 3 or 4 deep.
While the gunmen walked around, methodically executing anyone they saw move.
The sensory details, that's what makes it so real, so horrifying. Mark Blackwell, another survivor, he talked about the smell.
Yeah, he described this horrible mix of gunpowder and blood so strong you can almost taste it. It wasn't just violence you saw, it was something you inhaled. The air itself was thick with death.
And maybe the most haunting sound, it came when the shooting paused for a moment.
The terrible silence.
Broken only by this chorus. Worse than the gunfire, some said. The sound of cell phones.
Hundreds of them, just ringing and ringing in the pockets of the dead, unanswered.
Every ring, a loved one calling. A friend, a parent, a partner, asking, are you okay? Where are you?
And silence was the only reply. Just lighting up the pockets of the deceased. Imagine lying there, playing dead, hearing that soundscape of unanswered calls all around you. Absolute dread.
Meanwhile, outside, the first police officer arrives. Unexpectedly early, really, just as the siege is beginning.
Right. This is the man known only as Commissaire D in the reports.
Yeah.
Head of the anti-crime brigade in Paris, the BAC.
Now, we need to be clear about who he was and wasn't. A commissaire is a senior rank, often more administrative.
And the BAC, his unit, they deal with street crime, surveillance. They're not the heavy tactical guys, not like the BRI who came later.
So he turns up, him and his partner, just in standard uniform, armed only with their service revolvers, no body armor, no assault rifles, completely unprepared for this level of warfare.
He pushes through the doors into hell. He testified the first thing that hit him wasn't noise, it was light. Extremely strong light blinding us.
And then silence. A bewildering silence, he called it. An indescribable moment of terror, seeing hundreds of bodies just piled up.
But in that chaos, his training kicks in. He spots a target, a terrorist on the stage. Calm. Very poised, he said, aiming his Kalashnikov at a survivor trying to escape.
Commissaire D knows he's massively outgunned. Revolver against an AK-47. But he acts. Instantly, he fires.
The terrorist drops, and his suicide vest detonates, killing only himself and, tragically, one hostage nearby. But it cleared the stage.
That one act saved who knows how many lives right there on the main floor. But it also, escalated things.
Definitely. The other 2 gunmen immediately pull back, retreat to the balcony, gives them a high protected firing position.
And it's during a lull in the shooting that followed, a brief pause in the firefight between the balcony and the police downstairs,
That this incredibly human moment happens. He testified that he and his partner stopped, right there amid the carnage, and they called their families.
They called their significant others to say goodbye. He said he was absolutely certain I was going to die that night.
Just try to imagine that, making that call, saying those final words, hanging up, and then just turning around and going back to the fight, back into the darkness.
The sheer mental strength required. Staggering. And the only reason he was even in that position, pure chance.
Complete random chance. He wasn't supposed to be at the Bataclan at all.
His radio had initially sent him somewhere else entirely.
To the Stade de France, the stadium, where the first bombs went off. The sources are clear. A simple radio misdirection, probably just an error in the heat of the moment, but the first armed response right at the Bataclan doors minutes after it started.
Which allowed him to take out that first terrorist on the stage, if he'd followed his original orders.
The massacre inside the Bataclan would have continued unchecked on the main floor for much, much longer. The death toll could have been even higher.
Okay, so let's go to where Commissaire D was supposed to be. The Stade de France, north of Paris, 9:16 p.m.
This was clearly planned as the big one. The main event, in horrific terms. 80,000 fans inside. France versus Germany soccer match. President Holland himself was there.
The potential for mass casualty was enormous, and this, right here, is the absolute sliding doors moment of the whole night.
It really is. The entire attack narrative could have been completely different based on one routine action. A bomber tries to get into the stadium area, tries to go through a turnstile.
And a security guard stops him. Routine pat down, nothing unusual.
Except the guard feels something. The bulk, the shape of the suicide vest under the man's coat.
And that guard, acting instantly, just turns him away. says, no, you can't come in.
The bomber realizes he's caught. He backs off, away from the crowd queuing at the entrance, and detonates his vest just outside the perimeter wall.
That single action by that guard saved thousands. If that bomb had gone off inside the concourse, or even just inside the perimeter,
Yeah.
the panic, the stampede.
It would have been catastrophic, orders of magnitude worse than even the Bataclan. That one guard just doing his job properly fundamentally changed the night.
But what's fascinating, looking back at the sources from the immediate aftermath,
Yeah.
is how much people needed a specific hero for that moment. Very quickly, this story started circulating.
Ah, yes. The story of Zuhair. A specific Muslim security guard, hailed as the hero who stopped the bomber single-handedly.
It was everywhere. A perfect narrative, right? Redemptive, comforting, the exact kind of hero the world wanted to find in that chaos.
But the investigation, when you dig into the actual reports, the truth is less cinematic, more mundane, as it often is.
The report that kicked off the rumor only mentions Zuhair being briefed on the sequence of events by the security team who actually did the frisking.
So the world, basically, constructed the hero it needed, filled in the gaps. It shows the deep psychological need we have to find order and identifiable figures of good within random horror.
We wanted a human hero. Maybe didn't quite get one in that specific way, but the sources do point to something else performing a genuine miracle right there at the stadium. An inanimate object.
Right. This is the story of Sylvester, a man just walking past the stadium right when that first bomb went off.
He'd literally just hung up his phone. A Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge, the reports say, moments before the explosion.
And he gets hit. Shrapnel flies towards him, a piece of metal heading straight for his head.
But it doesn't reach him. It hits his phone, lodges right in it. The phone took the impact.
There are pictures of it. Huge dent in the phone. It absolutely saved his life.
His own words are just incredible. He said, quote, "This is the mobile phone that took the hit. It's what saved me. Otherwise, my head would have been blown to pieces. It's a miracle."
We think of technology often enabling these attacks, the coordination. But here, a standard consumer gadget becomes an accidental life-saving shield. Pure chance.
So the stadium attack, meant to be the deadliest part, essentially fails, thanks to one diligent guard and one very lucky phone call, ending just in time.
But this was a multi-pronged attack. While Sylvester's probably still trying to process what just happened, the second terror team is already active.
We shift now to the drive-by shootings, starting around 9:25 p.m., going on for about 10 minutes, till 9:36 p.m.
This was a different team, driving a black seat car, moving through the 10th and 11th arrondissement.
Just to give people the geography, these are busy eastern districts of Paris. Lots of nightlife, bars, restaurants, people sitting outside on terraces. Very common Parisian scene.
And this team just drove past places like Le Carillon, Le Petit Cambodge, La Belle Équipe, and sprayed automatic gunfire from the car into the crowd sitting outside.
The sheer randomness is chilling. At La Belle Équipe alone, 19 people murdered. Just having dinner, having drinks.
Like Nohemi Gonzalez, 23 years old, American student from California, described as energetic, bubbly, warm, just eating dinner with friends, wrong place, wrong second.
And the accounts reveal this wasn't just spraying bullets wildly, there was a horrifying malice.
Vadi, 21-year-old music student. He's walking past Le Petit Cambodge. Here's what he thinks are fireworks.
Then the shout, confirmed in the sources, Allahu Akbar.
He gets hit in the thigh, goes down, plays dead. But then comes this detail. It just shows the cold-blooded intent.
The gunman walks past, still firing, then stops, and reloads his weapon. Right there.
Yeah. Methodically reloads. And then shoots Thaddy 3 more times.
Yeah.
In the legs, the feet, deliberately. This wasn't just a drive-by. It was close-up execution attempt.
And yet again, the absurdity of survival kicks in. Thaddy's lying there, badly wounded. A stranger next to him, also wounded, gives him her phone, tells him to call his father.
And listen to what he actually says on that call, trying to make sense of the horror for his dad.
"I have good and bad news."
Good and bad news now.
The bad news is that I was in the middle of a shooting. I was hurt. A lot of people are dead around me, but I'm okay.
The mental gymnastics to frame it like that, while surrounded by death, just incredible. Trying to reassure his family.
But the tragic irony just keeps compounding. Thaddy's father, obviously frantic, jumps in a cab, races across Paris to find his son.
But the police have cordons up everywhere by now. Streaks blocked off.
So the taxi driver drops him as close as he can get, which happens to be right in front of the Bataclan Theater.
Oh my God. So he's rushing from the aftermath of one massacre, only to be delivered right into the heart of the unfolding siege at the Bataclan. just as Commissaire D and his partner were inside, making those goodbye calls.
It's like this cruel, complex map of intersecting fates across the city. Innocent people just kept getting caught in the crosshairs.
Which brings us back to the core question for the investigators. What linked all this? The failed stadium attack, these scattered cafe shootings, the Bataclan siege. How was it all coordinated?
And the answer comes back again to that piece of trash, that phone, the digital nerve center of the whole operation.
Right, let's circle back to that discarded phone. Found in the bin outside the Bataclan, what did it actually tell the police?
Well, first it confirmed the planning. It had a detailed floor plan of the Bataclan Theater on it. They knew the layout.
And, crucially, it had that sent message, timestamped 9:42 p.m. on est parti, on commence. We're off, we've started.
That was the smoking gun. The definitive proof that all three teams, stadium, cafes, Bataclan, were operating under a central command. It wasn't just random simultaneous attacks, it was coordinated.
And the digital trail from that phone, plus other intelligence, quickly led investigators across the border to a neighborhood in Brussels, Belgium, Molenbeek.
And to the man identified as the overall ringleader, the on-the-ground commander, Abdelhamid Abaoud.
Now, the media, the public, we often tend to imagine the architect of such a complex attack as, a strategic genius, mastermind of evil, maybe a deeply committed religious fanatic.
But the sources, especially testimony from people who actually knew him, who were recruited by him, they paint a very different picture.
Mohammed Abrini, one of his recruits, didn't describe a mastermind. He described Abaoud as simply a Belgian ex-convict, basically a street punk from Molenbeek who'd found a bigger stage.
That's a really important distinction, isn't it? So what was really driving him? Was it ideology or something else?
Belgian officials, digging into his background, stated his primary motivation seemed to be raw revenge, not Islam.
Revenge for what?
The sources say when Abaoud recruited Abrini, he took him to Syria, to his younger brother Youn's grave. Youn's had died fighting there, and Abaoud blamed France for his death.
So it was personal, deeply personal vendetta. He used the framework of ISIS, the banner of jihad, but the core engine was settling a personal score.
Exactly. It seems he leveraged the organization, the ideology, the manpower to enact his own personal revenge fantasy on a grand scale. It really changes how you perceive the mastermind.
Okay, so Abaoud put together this team. 10 men in total for the Paris attacks.
9 of them died that night, killed by police or blew themselves up with their suicide vests. Abaoud himself was killed in a police raid a few days later.
But one member of the 10-man unit survived the night of the 13th, and this became the huge mystery, the focus of a massive manhunt. Salah Abdeslam, the 10th man.
Abdeslam had a clear role. He was the driver for the stadium bombers, dropped them off at the Stade de France.
And his mission after that?
He was supposed to detonate his own suicide vest. Target. The 18th arrondissement, another busy district in northern Paris.
But he didn't do it. He drove there then. Just dumped the vest, abandoned the car, and somehow managed to flee back to Belgium.
For once, he was Europe's most wanted man. When they finally caught him, captured him alive, and brought him to trial, he offered an explanation.
He claimed he had a change of heart, a crisis of conscience at the last moment.
His words were simple. I didn't want to do it.
That narrative, the terrorist who pulled back from the brinket, was powerful. It dominated a lot of the discussion.
But to understand if that was true, we actually need to go back to the Bataclan, to the very end of the siege, and then look at the forensic evidence found later.
Okay, so it's now 12:20 a.m. Hours have passed since the first shots. The elite police tactical unit, the BRI, is finally making entry to end the siege.
Let's clarify the BRI again. Brigade de Recherche et d'Intervention. They're the specialists. Anti-gang, hostage rescue, heavy weapons. The right team for this job, but the conditions were horrific.
They're going up the stairs of this old theater, narrow, winding stairs, and they're pushing this massive shield.
The Ramsey shield, it's huge. 80 kilograms, about 180 pounds, on wheels. A ballistic shield designed to create a moving wall of protection.
Imagine the effort. Pushing that weight up narrow, probably blood-slicked stairs, in the dark, under unimaginable pressure, just getting into position was exhausting.
Captain Jeremy, one of the BRI commandos on that assault team, he testified about what they found inside. He called it a hell on earth, just carnage everywhere.
But he said the hardest part, the truly abominable sound, wasn't the silence or the echoes of gunfire. It was the sounds of the living.
The wounded. Survivors hidden under bodies, pinned down, begging, screaming for help as the police moved past.
And Captain Jeremy's team, they had to make this impossible choice. He testified when people cried out for help, they had to say no. They had to physically step over the wounded, over the dead.
Because the mission objective was absolute: neutralize the remaining terrorists first. Every second spent helping one wounded person was a second the gunman could kill more.
It's the brutal reality of tactical operations. You have to ignore the immediate pleas for help to stop the source of the killing.
They finally reach the corridor where the last two terrorists are cornered. They push the Ramses shield forward.
And instantly, Kalashnikov fire erupts. The terrorists just unload on the shield.
It took 27 direct hits, 27 rounds from assault rifles impacting that shield. One officer right behind it later said, flat out, "Without the shield, I would not be here." It absorbed lethal force.
The police return fire. The terrorists are hit. They detonate their vests. And finally, after 2.5 hours, the siege of the Bataclan is over.
90 dead inside the theater, 130 total across Paris that night. The attack is finished. And Salah Abdeslam is the only attacker left alive.
Which brings us right back to his claim, his change of heart. He chose life, he said. He didn't want to go through with it.
This is where cold, hard science gives us the final twist: the forensics. At his trial, police explosives experts presented their analysis of the suicide vest Abdeslam had dumped in the 18th arrondissement.
What did they find?
Their conclusion was clinical. Devastating for his story. The detonators on the vest were defective.
Defective.
And more than that, the vest itself was faulty. Specifically, it was missing the actual switch, and the battery needed to complete the electrical circuit and trigger the explosion.
So, it wouldn't have worked anyway.
Exactly. His conscience didn't stop him. His equipment failed him. The vest simply couldn't detonate.
So the entire narrative, the remorse, the choice, it was a lie, a story constructed after the fact.
The evidence strongly suggests that. He wasn't a repentant man who hesitated at the brink. He was, in practical terms, a failed terrorist whose bomb malfunctioned. His survival wasn't a choice, it was a technical failure.
The weight of that moral awakening seems to have rested entirely on a faulty wire or a missing battery.
It seems so. Abdeslam was found guilty on all charges: terrorism, murder, sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. The full life sentence, the harshest available in France.
1 year later, almost to the day, the Bataclan Theater attempted to take a step back. It reopened.
With a concert by Sting, actually. A very poignant choice.
And Sting, he addressed the crowd, spoke in French. He acknowledged how difficult it was for everyone to be there. He said they had a dual task that night.
What was that?
First, to remember and honor those who lost their lives, which is essential.
And second, to celebrate the life and the music that this historic theater represents.
Trying to reclaim the space for what it was meant for.
But that second task, celebrating life, it's much harder, much heavier for those who actually lived through it. Survival didn't mean going back to normal.
Look at Didi, the security guard at the Bataclan. He was a hero. Opened the emergency exits, saved hundreds of lives with his quick thinking.
He went to that Sting concert, showed solidarity, but he talked afterwards about this profound loss of certainty. Could he even do his job again?
He said, you can't know until you're in the exact conditions again, there in the dark. The trauma shattered his confidence in his own abilities, even though he'd performed heroically.
Or let's go back to Arthur de Nouveau, the banker who slithered out, used his old military skills.
Did he just go back to his banking job?
No, he quit. He left that world entirely. And the reason wasn't just PTSD or nightmares, though I'm sure those were present. It was the social isolation, how people looked at him.
How so?
He said he realized survival marked him. People weren't just sympathetic, they were wondering how damaged I was. I could see it in their eyes.
Like he was fragile or tainted by it.
Exactly. He felt viewed as this damaged object, maybe already a ghost of his former self. He'd survived the attack, but society seemed unwilling or unable to treat him as just normal anymore. That isolation was unbearable.
That's the quiet tragedy, isn't it? The second act, the weight of just carrying on, feeling set apart. It's often overlooked.
Absolutely. Survival is just the beginning of a different, quieter, often harder story.
And yet, Paris, the city itself, found a way to articulate its response, pulled strength from something much older.
In the weeks and months after the attacks, this phrase started appearing everywhere. On walls, memorials, posters, candles, an old Latin motto.
The city's official motto, right? Dates back centuries.
Fluctuat nec mergitur.
Meaning?
She is tossed by the waves, but does not sink. It's from the city's coat of arms, which shows a ship navigating rough seas.
Wow. That resonates powerfully, doesn't it?
Incredibly so.
Yeah.
And our deep dive tonight, looking at these sources, it confirms that the story of November 13th is fundamentally about being tossed by those waves.
It's not only about the 130 people who were tragically lost, it's also about the thousands more people like Arthur, Thady, Dee Dee, Helen, Sylvester, who were thrown into that violent storm of chance.
And who somehow, in their own ways, had to find a new way to stay afloat, to not sink. Often scarred, often changed forever, but still afloat. Hashtag #𝐃𝐄𝐄𝐿.
So when we pull all these threads together from the sources, the thing that really stands out is the almost unbelievable role of chance and flawed technology.
The symmetry is just stark, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sylvester's cheap mobile phone saves his life, literally stops a piece of metal hitting his head.
Well, another cheap mobile phone, the one found in the bin, provides the final command, the digital trigger, for 130 deaths.
It forces you to confront just how fragile everything is, how easily a meticulously planned, multi-side attack can be partly undone by tiny, unseen failures.
A security guard doing a proper pat-down.
Commissar D getting the wrong radio instruction by accident.
And most crucially, perhaps, a defective battery connection in Salah Abdeslam's suicide vest.
Which leads us to that final kind of provocative thought the sources leave you with. We always look for the masterminds, right? The evil geniuses behind these horrific acts.
But the evidence here points towards the ringleader being essentially a street punk from Belgium, motivated by personal revenge more than grand ideology.
And the attack's failure to be even more catastrophic. It didn't hinge on some heroic counterintelligence coup. It hinged in part on faulty engineering, bad wiring, a missing battery.
If Abdeslam's vest had worked, if that connection had been solid,
he wouldn't be known as the liar exposed in court. He'd likely be hailed as a martyr by ISIS and their followers. His narrative would be completely different.
So, does that technical failure change the nature of his guilt? Is intention the only thing that matters, or does the faulty outcome somehow lessen it?
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How often does history, big or small, turn not on belief or strategy or even courage, but on a faulty switch, on cheap, defective equipment, just not working as intended?
That's a humbling thought, and a deeply human one, maybe. How much relies on things just working or not working?
Indeed. Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.